This is White Plains Week, the weekly roundup of White Plains, Westchester, and world news. With John Bailey, editor and publisher of the daily internet newspaper White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, WPCNR.com. Jim Benerofe, editor and publisher of SuburbanStreet.com and WhitePlains.com. And me, Peter Katz, formerly with NBC, ABC News, and stations from Boston to Los Angeles. White Plains Week, what's happening? Who are the newsmakers? What's in store for the future? The views and opinions expressed on this program are solely those of the participants. White Plains Week is presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76, Verizon Fios Channel 45, and on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. Now, White Plains Week.
Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. White Plains, Westchester, and the world. This is the Old Citizen Net Reporter with the Dean of Journalism in White Plains, New York, USA, Jim Benerofe. Peter Katz is on assignment this evening. And now to Jim for the headlines.
And now, here are the stories for White Plains Week of March 29th, 2019. Republican Party nominates 3 to run for Common Council in White Plains to oppose Democrat slate. Airport Citizens Advisory Committee considering raising landing fees on commercial and private aircraft. Airport noise monitoring discussion brings out overflow crowd. Noise, a health hazard to all ages, noise expert says. North 60 Biotech Center presents biotech plan to Mount Pleasant Planning Board. Smoky fire causes evacuation of 3 floors of Trump Tower in White Plains. City sales tax receipts post 6th consecutive month of decline. County sales tax receipts up 6 of last 8 months. County Executive George Latimer holds off decisions on marijuana enforcement procedures until after state legislature and governor sign a bill. Business Council of Westchester announces they support fully licensed casino at Empire City. County Executive Latimer introduces first incubator showcase for entrepreneurs. City holds public hearing on 52 North Broadway environmental studies Monday. City will introduce 2019-2020 budget Monday evening.
Thank you, Jim. And now, on to the White Plains Week video newsreel March of Time. We have Republican candidates for Common Council for the fall elections, and there they are: Andrew Custodio, Anne Marie Encarnaco, and Brian Perrone, just announced exclusively to the Citizen Net Reporter this week. Here are the 2 opposing slates now on the next slide, and Mr. Perrone and Mr. Custodio and Ms. Encarnaco will oppose the incumbent councilman Nadine Hunt Robinson and 2 newcomers running for the council for the first time, Victoria Presser and Jennifer Puja. And we interview all 3 of the Democratic candidates next week on People to Be Heard. Mr. Perrone is making his first run for the Common Council and has 40 years of experience in the restaurant service business. He was purchasing director of the exclusive Beach Point Club in Mamaroneck for 25 years. Mr. Custodio, his second run for the Common Council, and Anne Marie Encarnaco, her third. Custodio has good name recognition of the Council of Neighborhood Associations. He is a professional engineer with WSP Engineering, the worldwide engineering force. Anne Marie Encarnaco is a local realtor known by many folks. Jim, How do you think they match up against Nadine Hunt Robinson, the incumbent council person, and the first-time candidates?
Well, I think that Nadine will win. I think. I don't think there's anybody there that's going to turn her out. I just think I think she's a shoo-in. Let me put it that way.
Well, she has been an active force on the council and made that highly controversial decision to deny Fazzi when she first got onto the council. Yeah. And that was a real surprise and has extended matters infinitely, basically. Now, I know. Just for the record, Victoria Presser is Public Relations Officer for the Scarsdale School District, and Jennifer Puja, the Labor Council Director for Westchester Putnam Labor Council, AFL-CIO. I note also, Jim, that the Council of Neighborhood Associations has often been a strong supporter of Democratic candidates over the years, and this certainly, with having a co-president of the Council of Neighbor Associations run for the council, is an interesting development.
Yeah.
Can you recall anyone else who was on the Council of Neighbor Associations who actually ran for the council? I don't.
But not offhand, but
But anyway, it's great to see somebody stepping up from the council, trying to at least be a force on the council. Right. Now, at Westchester County Airport, the Airport Advisory Committee met, here's the picture of a very crowded room, to consider airport noise Wednesday evening before an overflow crowd of 60 persons in this little bitty conference room. In February, we learned that there were 3,010 noise complaints. That's in the upper left-hand corner, that slide. And curfew violations of the 11:30 p.m. to 6:30 a.m. curfew for flying were up considerably. On the right, you can see that. They averaged 9 violations a night. This noise expert, Dr. Adelaide Bronzav, shown here, indicated that noise affects child development and health of persons of all ages, advising the crowd they had to demand better aircraft control of noise. And the most significant information was that the aviation enjoys bargain landing fees at Westchester Airport compared to other airports in the region, according to Peter Schlachtis, board chairman, and here he is talking about it.
You know, it is true that we currently charge landing fees well below the going rate in the region. You know, as an example, in the 10 to 15,000, and by the way, landing fees tend to increase the bigger the plane is, under the logic that those larger planes cause more wear and tear to the airport, and therefore it's justifiable to make them pay their way. So between 10 and 15,000 pounds, we currently charge $25. Teterboro is over 3 times that, and it's you know, we kind of view Teterboro as probably the closest equivalent airport that you can make. Newark is actually considerably higher than that, nearly 6 times what we charge. The closest one, actually, the only one that is less, is Farmingdale, which is a much smaller airport, and everybody else is higher. Well, I take that back. Stewart is $22.95, but if you go to, for example, a 50,000 plane, we're at $270, and yes, there are other airports locally, small airports that charge less, but Teterboro is at $270. Sorry, I apologize. We are at $80. Farmingdale's at $70. The next lowest airport is over $100. Teterboro is $270. Newark is $616. Right? And lastly, at 100,000, pounds. We're at 150. There is no other airport less than us. Even Farmingdale is higher by a few dollars. Everybody else is at or over 200. Teterboro at 675 and Newark at 880 to our 150. So there is both a need for a legitimate need for funding, and there is a legitimate case to make that without in any way, shape, or form prejudicing or subjecting aircraft to unfair, uncompetitive fees, that we can adjust ours. And it's been a good number of years since ours were adjusted. So one of the concepts that we would like to put in front of the board, the advisory board, for our consideration, aiming for hopefully a recommendation that we can consider and vote on for the county's benefit next month, would be essentially pegging our fees to those issues above. That would be the amount. Another issue is who to charge.
So that is mind-boggling. This is a bargain basement airport. The crowd was very interesting, but they didn't get to talk too much. But there was one point made by Ivy Poole of the Newcastle Town Council, and she said it is time to conduct an analysis of the air traffic and flight patterns. They should lobby the FAA to institute a mandatory curfew and increase airport fees, as we just saw. I mean, it is a problem, and the noise. I tell you, I had a jet fly over my house down in the Avalanche Manor neighborhood. It was like 500 feet, but it was loud. 20 minutes to 8 in the morning. But and the helicopters. Give me a break.
You can't.
Yeah.
You sort of can't look at this in a. What the future is going to bring is going to be interesting.
Mm-hmm.
If we develop more high-speed rail, you're going to have less flights. Okay.
Yes, but then you have to develop it first.
No, I understand that.
I mean, that's way out there.
But if you're going to develop self-driving cars, it's going to cut into flying too.
That's way out there too.
Well, that's not as way out there. Maybe
but
as
it's now that's the problem, and you're not going to stop flying either.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
but I agree with you. There's lots of technological stuff, but I tell you, I have a real problem with this state's, particularly, attitude towards mass speedy rail, whatever we call it. What do we call it? High-speed rail. Right. They had a chance to do that with the Tappan Zee Bridge, and they passed on it. They passed on it.
They could do New York to Washington, Boston to New York, Boston to Washington.
But it's got to be a lot
Chicago
faster.
to New York.
3 hours doesn't cut it, you know? It just doesn't.
Yeah.
But they got to be a lot faster. Now, moving on to dollars and cents. The city's sales tax revenues are down 2.7% for the first 8 months of the fiscal year. Meanwhile, Westchester County is 4.5% ahead the first 2 months of its new fiscal year, started in January. The county economy has grown for the 7th straight month and maintained its average of approximately 5% growth each month. That is more than double the inflation rate. White Plains, as it plans its 2019-20 budget being released Monday, should be concerned. If White Plains pulls in last year's numbers the next 4 months, it will receive $49.2 million in sales tax. If the 3% declining rate is continued over the next 4 months, the revenue will erode to $48.7 million. You know, ballpark figures. And with labor negotiations in mind, where a 3% increase is expected to be lobbied for by all unions, if they have already settled and agreed on that, is in line with the precedent the county set in its negotiations. So, what do we think about the sales tax? Could it have something to do with the Walmart departure? Because it's pretty consistent.
Well, It's hard to say without knowing exactly what sales were being produced by Walmart.
Yeah, which information is not available.
You know, White Plains has always been a big retail city, and why it's not performing is an interesting question. I don't think they're exploring some of the potentially real facts in that, and I don't know what's making the county do better. I don't know where their sales taxes are coming from, the highest amounts, I mean.
Yes, well, remember Eileen Earle expressed real frustration because they can't get those individual by industry figures from the state. They've asked, the state doesn't make them available.
Does the
Remember
state
that?
actually have that kind of breakdown?
Well, you know what a business is that pays you sales tax, right? So you can just break it out, but
well,
it's
the
too
question
much
is, are they
information.
breaking it out?
Yes, but they're not breaking it out.
So they're not using it for their own benefit
According to
either.
Ms. Earle, many years ago, they don't do that. It would be much easier if you could come out and say, listen, I think we really need to build up this because people are coming in for
Exactly.
this, you know. And the fact that the state will not release that by request is not helpful to individual cities and towns, whether they're White Plains, New Row, or Buffalo, for that matter. And but this is something that has to be looked at and more closely.
That's right.
Right. Now, news was made this week. The North 60 campus, shown here, it was a big, big campus, so it took a little while there. But anyway, the North 60 campus, which is being built just above the Westchester Medical Center in Mount Pleasant, is made a presentation to the Mount Pleasant Planning Board, and the Planning Board is expected to schedule a public hearing on the project scoping document in May, so that is moving a little faster. The project's 3 million square feet will include biotech, med technology space, research and medical office space, plus neighborhood-style retail space. I think you're supposed to be doing research, aren't you? I never realized they were going to put in retail there. Did you?
No, but they probably need a certain amount of retail to service.
Perhaps. They say they also have a hotel with conference facilities, a health and wellness center. Yes, got to keep those researchers healthy so they can do all
Well,
the
that's not
research.
only for the research. I assume
Yes.
that's for the general public.
Yes,
too.
worked out on the lunch hour. Yeah. First phase of construction is expected to begin in the fall of 2020. Do you think that's ambitious or right on target or realistic? I mean, Mount Pleasant
Honestly,
has got a rubber
I
stamp
really have no idea. I would assume the faster they can build it, the better.
Yes, faster is better. No kidding, faster is always better, except in certain activities. The project also, by the way, will include a first-of-its-kind children's living science and learning center. Really? That's really something. And now, back to the local scene. A wood-burning stove in the Via Veneto restaurant in City Center last Saturday created this smoky scene at the City Center. White Plains firefighters, showing the value of a professional full-time fire department, put out the fire within an hour. 3 floors of the Trump Tower were evacuated. 1 person was treated for smoke inhalation, and so you told me about this. I couldn't get down there because it was all blocked up. But what did you think about that? I think that we have a great fire department.
Yeah. Well,
Not a problem.
I could not see us having a volunteer fire department.
Certainly
You
not. But
I mean, this is.
yes. But anyway, another great shout out to the fire department, which is always there. They save your property. And that is not to be sneezed at. You look around the county and you see how many buildings are absolutely destroyed because fire departments cannot get there in time or to really.
Well, I think
we
White
do.
Plains
The
has
guys
an
do.
excellent track record on fire safety.
They sure do. And knock on wood, right. Now, the county executive, George Latimer, said he would not address the situation of county enforcement of legislation permitting recreational marijuana until the law was passed. But how do we really feel about recreational use of marijuana while driving in public? And while we are at it, what does the County Commissioner of Health feel about the addictive properties of marijuana? I mean, we should have some sort of statement from the Commissioner of Health on it, you know?
You know, I think that decriminalizing marijuana is a positive thing to do. I think that this kind of free recreational stuff is maybe going too far. Mm-hmm. We could become the highest nation in the world.
Well, I mean, I keep thinking of the term of the movie Reefer Madness when I think of marijuana. And it is sort of like an introductory drug.
Yeah, well, it has.
Do we really want to promote that?
Yeah,
is the revenue that important?
It has benefits and problems, but I think open recreational use, let me put it this way. The introduction of smoke into the human lung is not healthy.
Of course not.
And it depends upon, lungs can tolerate smoke to a certain extent, but if you go beyond a certain extent, you run into real medical problems.
Right.
So anything that's encouraging smoking or inhaling smoke that's not.
Yes, I mean the legislature upstate has to stop focusing on how can we get more money into this state.
Well, I think they've got to focus on that.
Yeah, but not by introducing, you know, this permissive.
I'm fine with decriminalizing, but I think that the use of marijuana should have its limitations.
Right. Now, the Business Council of Westchester weighed in on two issues they issued a statement on, encouraging the state not to pass. Both the Assembly and Senate, they said, included prevailing wage legislation in the new state budget scheduled for adoption by next week. However, that may or may not happen. They feel that this legislation should not be passed, even though strongly backed by the construction and labor unions. And the legislation would require that any development project receiving state funding assistance would be required to pay the prevailing wages for all construction labor. And they feel this is really going to hurt business, and they are against it. And viewers of People to Be Heard recently heard Lata McGinn and Alec Miller discuss the film Like, outlining the effects of smartphone use on young people and adults since the smartphone's introduction in 2007. Stepinac High School Honors Academy's lecture series will present a free screening and discussion for parents and the community of the award-winning documentary Selling Your Soul, about the impact of digital devices on interpersonal relationships. It will be held 7 p.m. Tuesday, April 2nd at Stepinac's Major Bose Auditorium, and it's open to the public. Here is a clip of this film which explores another side of what we spoke about with Dr. McGinn.
In less than a decade, our smartphone technology has completely changed the way we connect with one another. Yet have we stopped to ask, how are these changes changing us?
I think technology is beautiful. I think it's one of the most beautiful things in the world because we can communicate with people just on a completely different level that we've never been able to do before. Never been able to do before. But now people just take complete advantage of that.
One college professor is changing the conversation, asking people not what do you think, but how do you feel?
It's very much an addiction.
I don't know why I had this need just to know what everybody was doing.
Kind of gave me a weird anxiety about being on the internet all the time.
No one asks each other on dates anymore.
No one wants to say hi. No one cares if you smile. It's hard enough to just smile at somebody and get them to smile back at you nowadays.
And found an empowering solution to the problem of digital dependence.
I started feeling like lighter.
I think free is kind of cliche to say, but I do definitely feel that way.
My connections with my friends and, family were now stronger.
It wasn't meant to be just in your face the whole time and you're losing the connection.
I want to communicate in real life in my future, and I think that everyone else needs to understand that that's going to go away if we keep continuing to live the way we are.
You cannot take human interaction out of the equation because that's how it began, and that's the only way to keep it going.
Tuesday at Stepanak Archbishop High School, the Major Bose Auditorium, and it's at 7 o'clock. Now, finally, tonight in the White Plains, today was Vietnam Veterans Recognition Day on the steps of City Hall, Jim. We should look back, think, and remember how difficult that time in the 60s was for America's leaders, the American people, but hardest most for the Americans who fought and died and suffer today for their service. Thank you. John Bailey, Jim Benerofe, good night for White Plains Week.
This has been White Plains Week, news and commentary about White Plains, Westchester, and the world. The views and opinions expressed on this program were solely those of the participants. White Plains Week, produced by White Plains Citizen Net Reporter, and presented on Optimum Cable Channel 76 and Verizon Fios Channel 45. You may view White Plains Week anytime on the internet at whiteplainsweek.com, youtube.com, and wpcommunitymedia.org. For White Plains Week, this is Peter Katz speaking.